Thank you, Your Honor. I will apologize in advance. I didn't expect to actually reach this point today. This is my second victim statement in 24 hours. Yesterday was reliving the two worst days of my life, between hearing the step-by-step account of my sister's murder, Mr. Mello's two new charges, his bond hearing, and my niece being put into emergency protective care again. So I am exhausted, and I'm going to do my best to express myself appropriately. So with Your Honor's leniency, just give me a bit of grace. My understanding is this conversation is with you. This isn't with the defendant. This is not with counsel. This is not with the gallery. So this is a conversation with you. And I've had 3 years to try to articulate how this has impacted me, and I still have yet to find the words, and it won't happen tonight either. So I've decided instead to talk about what logically should be taken into consideration for any sentencing, which is remorse, rehabilitation, and recidivism. This defendant sat on that stand with full disregard for the authority of the law when it came to his actions outside of this courtroom, in blatant disregard for the authority of law inside this courtroom. He recounted step by step in excruciating detail everything he did. And if I may paraphrase the defense counsel's closing statement, did he cry? Did he shake? Did he look visibly distressed? He said the word repulsed, but did he once look repulsed? He said the word vomited. Did he ever once look nauseated, as he described dragging my sister through my living room? Cold doesn't begin to describe the lack of emotion. And if I may be blunt, if we're going to argue somebody has to have malice and hate in their heart to be capable of murder, then one could also argue that anyone medically diagnosed as antisocial personality disorder is therefore not capable of committing murder. I think that is a logical fallacy, is asinine, and the fact that I'm tired, I will no longer go down that, but there has been no remorse once shown by this defendant in this courtroom. Without remorse, you cannot have rehabilitation. Rehabilitation requires acknowledgement that I have done a wrong, I have a debt to pay, and I can improve to become a better member of society. It begins with remorse. Without remorse, there is no rehabilitation. Without remorse, without rehabilitation, you have recidivism. This man, no, I'm sorry, this defendant wanted to kill someone. He joined the Marines, specifically the infantry. He wanted to kill someone. He was given a target on a silver platter. He was given an address, a date, a time, and he planned it. Because he knew that if he planned it just enough, he would never get caught. He planned it so much that he thought, well, even when I got caught, I got this. I can still get out of this. Without remorse, without rehabilitation, any person that goes through that effort to commit a murder would absolutely do it again to see if they could. You're left with either two options. Either he is a weak, easily manipulated man who would kill anybody that anyone asked him to. Or he's not a weak and easily manipulated man. And if that's the case, then he absolutely would do this again to see if he's smart enough this time, to see if he can beat it this time, because he has shown no respect for the law of this courtroom. The only thing that I will say about this situation overall is that all of these men did nothing but use my sister. John Mello used her to create a whole new family when he had a wife and children already. Brad Post used her. This defendant used her. All of them used her for their own twisted personal gratification. He would do it again. Without remorse, without rehabilitation, you will have recidivism. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else from the state? Okay. Defense.
Your Honor, may it please the court, Your Honor's preside over this trial. Your Honor is aware of the evidence that was presented at the trial. Your Honor is also aware of the evidence that was proffered. We do believe that could go to mitigation, so we would ask Your Honor to consider that very carefully. Zach has no prior criminal history, and he stands ready for sentencing. Your Honor, I would ask for Mr. David Hughes, Zach's father, to have the opportunity to address the court briefly.
Just stand right there.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to speak a few words on my son's behalf. The trial is over. A verdict's been rendered, and we accept that. What I want to speak to, because I understand this is the sentencing phase of the trial, where you have some parameter of your sentence. My son is probably, in my lifetime, and I've run into some pretty amazing people, and this is going to be seen as a bias from the father, but he has got such a strong moral compass and fortitude and desire for the truth in his life than really anyone I've ever met. He actually eclipses a lot of those things that I aspire to myself. It's what makes his music so incredibly meaningful, because as a musician, and there are some world-class musicians sitting here today, colleagues of Zach's, what makes a musician's art come through is what's the essence of who they are. It's not something you can fake. When you hear it, you know it's a fake. When you hear music that causes people in a room to weep, you know it's coming from something inside that person that you cannot describe. Zach was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. I want to tell you that. I taught all my children, Zach being the oldest, the value of hard work. He might have been the only person at Juilliard to show up without manicured fingernails and calluses instead. He worked hard. I pushed him hard. Fathers and parents tend to do that with their firstborn child. And maybe I pushed him, a little hard at times. But it made him the man he is today. I want to address something, and Mr. Wilkins?
I got to just address the court.
that Zach is a cold-blooded killer. I am sorry. Zach wrote his mother and I a letter delivered to us through his attorneys approximately a month ago. In that letter, he described basically what he did in that chair over there, only in a little more detail. Why he did what he had to do, what he felt he had to do. You heard him say in that chair, he wasn't going to go on a cruise ship to Bora Bora, where he was headed, and look at himself in the mirror at night after playing beautiful classical music for rich people. He couldn't do that. Zach has been brutally honest in his life. So much, sometimes to the detriment of his own career. Everybody in the piano world wants to be a soloist with an orchestra. Whether it's a very small amount of room on the head of that pin, and that's where he was headed. But he had people in his life, donors, rich benefactors, who made demands of him artistically in exchange for their financial benefit, and he walked away from it to the detriment of his own career. Why do I bring that up? He has such a strong moral compass and a desire for the truth that sometimes he actually hurts himself. His friends here, all these people in this courtroom for the last 2 weeks have been here day in, day out, some as far as from Seattle, Washington. They're here because they grew up with Zach in the music world, and they saw something in him they didn't see in anybody else. He has got a loyal circle of friends that I never had. I told my kids when they grew up, if you, at the end of your life, you end up with 2 or 3 people in your hand that are really there for you, that's the guy I want in the foxhole with me. Consider yourself lucky. Zach's got a dozen of those. Why? Bettina, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm not supposed to mention her name. I'm sorry. But I want you to know, Zach had felt compelled to do what he did because of what he would quote Edmund Burke on this. The only thing necessary for evil to prosper is for good men to do nothing. Okay. His desire for the truth and his truthful telling of what happened. I mean, he sat there and he didn't hold anything back that would benefit his portrayal to this court. He's just as brutally honest with himself as he is with other people. He has no criminal record whatsoever before this event. The only thing I know of is an outstanding traffic ticket in Italy somehow he rang up when he was there with Mello. And several of the guards in the detention center, where he's been for 3 years, he's been an exemplary inmate, have told him that they were going to come to this trial to support him. When you gain the silent respect of law enforcement officers, they see something in you. They see it all. And they see a guy that's respectful for 3 years without a single incident. I think that counts for something. So I'm just here. I'll wrap it up. As you determine your sentencing, I would ask you to consider what type of man he is. And take that into consideration. I love my son. I'm proud of my son. Thank you, Your Honor.
anything else from the state?
No, Your Honor. Your Honor, just for the purpose of the record, I don't, would Your Honor want to inquire Zach as to whether or not he wishes to speak?
That is up to you. Sorry, I thought that you had indicated that.
Right, he does not wish to speak. I just want to put that on record.
Okay.